All right, here we go. This is another big one. Smoke detox and restoration. Don't worry about my pretty handwriting because I will cover it all. So I'm going to set the stage here by saying this is a very nuanced situation. And I'm going to approach two different paths that this could go. There's a restoration claim, which means you're making an insurance claim. It'll likely be approved. There's going to be contractors involved. There's going to be an insurance company involved, potentially like a massive budget, and you're going to go deep here. This could be $100,000 plus. Carpets are getting ripped out. All your furniture is being replaced. A lot of people are going to have restoration claims here. So all of this applies because, like I said in another video, you're the general contractor of your health. So you want to know all the things to be sure of so you can keep an eye on your contractor, ask good questions, know what to push for with the insurance company, be informed when you're dealing with adjusters. Now, you may be in a situation where either A, your insurance company, you don't have coverage, you didn't have insurance, you didn't have fire insurance, you don't have a good policy, your home was 17 miles away and it smells, smoke was in the area, but there's not visible ash, there's not soot, your furnace filter is not contaminated, there's nothing in your attic insulation. So the insurance company, even if you have insurance, is going to deny you because, this is not black and white, like contaminated or not contaminated. Everybody in LA is somewhat contaminated, but depending which way the wind was blowing and where you were, like if it stunk at your house, if you evacuated, you have some amount of smoke contamination. Very simple. So a lot of these things are going to apply to both. If you're working with a great restoration contractor, this is just generally good information, but I'm also really speaking to someone who's doing a DIY detox. So some of it's nuanced and I'll get into a bit of that, but I just wanted to set the stage that these are two very different things. So let's start with air. Air is always, and by the way, I'm going to actually create a checklist here, which I'll put in a comment or in a link or something at the end of this for anyone who's doing the DIY protocol. I'll give you a step-by-step checklist in great detail. But, anyone can, anyway, that's coming. But air quality is the foundation of clean air. How is the smoke and all the chemicals impacting you? By breathing them. Yes, they can be on your bedding and your sheets and your mattresses and your couch and your surface, but generally it's respiratory stuff. It's your breathing, your air is contaminated. And anytime you're cleaning up, whether it's mold removal or a flood or a fire or an infectious disease cleanup, it's always an integrated approach of air and surface. Because if you scrub all your surfaces, while you're cleaning those surfaces, things are being kicked up in your air, but your air, which you can't see, is just as contaminated as the surface or more. So if you think about if dust gets on let's say you have dust on your countertop. Trick question. Do you think the dust accumulated because it magically emerged from the surface? Or do you think it accumulated from the air? And that's just the part you can visibly see that accumulated. So if you had enough accumulation to have dust accumulating on surfaces, how contaminated is your air? Think about a dirty fish tank or something where there's algae building up on the side and there's black spots and imagine how dirty the water is if you're actually at the point where surfaces are being contaminated. So air is always the foundation of clean air. And typically you're going to be using something called air scrubbers. These are big industrial air purifiers. If you have light damage and you're doing a DIY detox, air scrubbers could rent for $100 a day easily, and you're going to need them for a week or two while you're cleaning your home. So sometimes it just makes more sense to purchase high quality air purifiers. I'll talk about Jaspr later, but sometimes it just makes more sense to invest in a good long-term air purification solution, depending on the amount of damage. Now you own it, you have it. So integrated surface and air approach, making sure the air purifiers are HEPA, using them at a high speed while you have them. But basically, you want to be cleaning the air while you clean the surfaces. So anything that gets kicked up in the process is being cleaned. So you're cleaning your surfaces, you're stirring things up, and then the air is being cleaned as well. Same thing when you get your ducts cleaned, when you get your HVAC system clean, you want your air filtration running. So as particles are being released into the air, they're being filtered. Next up is deep cleaning. So I'll get into like the room by room approach. The deep cleaning and the room by room, they overlap a lot, but basically the high priority deep cleaning to remove smoke residue. So you're gonna wanna use a HEPA vacuum, and a Dyson HEPA is okay, but you'd want like a real HEPA vacuum. You can rent them. They're also about $50 to $100 a day. When a restoration company uses them, they charge per square foot. They could end up billing the insurance company 10 to 20 grand to HEPA vac all your surfaces because it goes per square foot. Fun fact, when I was doing restoration work, we could bill insurance more with the rates that they set to vacuum a wall. It was worth more than removing and replacing the wall. It's crazy. We didn't make up the rates. Yeah, so there's the HEPA vacuum that basically everybody would use is called the GD930. GD930. You might see it by a company called Nilfisk or Euroclean. They're between $400 and $700. I'd probably just buy one. I have one. I own one. And it's not my like daily Dyson cleaner, but it's the deep cleaner. It's the one that we're using quarterly. We're using it during seasonal allergies. We'd use it if smoke blew through the town. We'd use it once per year when we're doing a big deep clean. You could use it for your daily. It's a little bit overkill, but this is like your deep cleaning vacuum. These things are robust. You're going to have it for years. We could literally restore dozens of homes off of one filter. So your filter is going to last you like forever. So I'd consider investing in a HEPA vacuum, or, you know, if you have a couple other friends who are also doing DIY deep cleaning, you guys could split one. Maybe they pay you to rent it. So get creative on that a little bit, but you're going to want a real HEPA vacuum. These things are cleaning machines. Rugs, depending on contamination, if you're doing a restoration claim, I don't believe in cleaning rugs and carpets. I would be pushing to get these completely disposed of. If that's not an option, or it gets denied, or you're doing a DIY clean, you do a HEPA vacuum first. It's a dry clean. Then you do a steam clean. But if you can throw out the rugs, that would be better. Disposing is always better than cleaning, but it's not always practical. That comes back to something I talked about in the overview. Your health risks, your financial situation, if you have a claim approved or not, how damaged your home is. So I can't just tell everyone, rip out everything, because that's not going to be practical for everyone. But if you have significant damage, you have a claim, it's obviously better to toss things out than try to remediate and restore them. But this is a balance that you have to figure out. I can't do it in a broad scale like this. Same thing with mattresses, right? You'd HEPA vacuum them, then you'd steam clean them. Couches, you'd HEPA vacuum them, then you'd steam clean them. If it was significant damage to a bed, right? Like if it was a lot of smoke and there's visible contamination in your home, especially these foam beds these days, they're pretty contaminated, and you spend a third of your life on them. That's an area where I'd probably throw it away. Furniture, right? Even though you clean the surface, it's almost impossible to clean the inside. So go by the odor, go by the level of contamination, do your best. If it's insurance claims, I think all your furniture should go. I think your bed should go. We'll get more into other contents later, but that's how you would clean them. Also, with smoke and soot and ash, it's actually a dry cleaning method. So you will use like microfiber cloths. You can buy microfiber cloths in bulk. You can also buy one with like a stick for ceilings, but you actually don't want to do a wet clean. This is a big mistake that a lot of people make. It's a dry clean. It's not like cleaning up, wiping the counter after dinner with soap and water. Not at all. With smoke and soot, it's a very delicate, fine particulate. You want to use a dry clean, even like sponges, but you want to use microfiber cloths and do a dry clean. So first you would do a HEPA vacuum, then you'd go over it with a cloth, then you maybe vacuum it again. Then if you want to do a wet clean with an antimicrobial or a soap and water, you could, but dry cleaning is generally the way that you would be cleaning walls. Focusing on horizontal surfaces is essential because that's where the smoke accumulates. It actually has a hard time accumulating on a vertical surface, but on a horizontal surface, like a door frame, window sills, furniture, bedding, these things get more contaminated. So pay extra special attention to your horizontal surfaces. Now let's get into your structural and mechanical stuff. So you're going to want, of course, you're going to want to change your filter like immediately. And then you're going to want to change your filter again after a month. And probably you're probably changing your furnace filters monthly for the next few months. You're going to want to get a deep furnace clean. So this is like an HVAC guy coming, taking your furnace apart for a couple hours and cleaning it. You're going to want to get your ducts cleaned as well as your dryer vent. Ideally, someone who's also using like an environmental antimicrobial, like they know how to do a post-fire remediation, but broadly, you want to get your ducts cleaned. And good to have your air purification running while you get your ducts cleaned. And then because your air purification runs throughout the whole process, if you have this is honestly a good time, like with Jaspers, we make a really high quality commercial grade air purifier that was made for wildfire smoke. At the end of all these videos, I'll create a really significant discount code for people who got through this that want to invest in a high quality air purifier that was literally created for wildfire smoke by a wildfire restoration guy. There's a lot of other good ones out there too. Nice thing about Jaspr, it's made out of metal. It's designed for industrial grade work. It's beautiful, it's powerful, and it has a lifetime warranty, and it's quiet. So this is probably a good opportunity to get 4 of them and just make the investment, use them for your remediation process, and then have them forever. But that's up to you. Chimney sweep. Your chimney can also hold a lot of smoke, residual particulates and chemicals. Getting your chimney swept is important. Checking your insulation to make sure that there's no ash and soot in your insulation. If it is, you definitely want to get it removed and replaced. But if you're at this level and you find that ash and soot, either or in your attic, I'd be pushing hard for an insurance claim. I think you're beyond the scope of a DIY claim at this point in time. It'd be really annoying to have to pay for that. And truthfully, if you are out of pocket, that's not the thing I would prioritize, because your attics vent out more than they vent into your home. So that's not the first order of business. But if you do have an insurance claim, it's an important part that you should be compensated for. Once again, if you go to sell your house, they inspect your attic, there's ash in there, they're going to be knocking down the price of your home. Flooring, that shouldn't really fall into this category, and we talked a bit about that already. Now let's talk about the room by room approach. So, we have our air purification running, we've got our HVAC going, we know we need HEPA vacuums and steam cleaning. You want a room by room approach. You don't want to be cleaning everywhere a little bit. It's a deep clean. This is a deep clean, and you want to work top down. If you have a basement last, top floor first. Particulates tend to fall down. So you want to go top down from a house level, but you also want to go top down, meaning like ceilings, walls, then floors, and ceilings are not the most important thing, but if your house was heavily contaminated, then your smoke, if you have ceiling tiles, even drywall, doing it's like a kind of like a painter's brush, but with a big duster kind of thing going over it once, or your HEPA vacuum. You can get an extendable arm and go over that once. So you'd go, house-wise, you're going top floor to bottom floor, and then room-wise, you're starting ceiling, walls, shelving, floor last. And then porous material, anything that absorbs smoke, especially if it's low cost, should be disposed of. I'll go back to it again. If it's an insurance claim, I want everything that's porous disposed of. If it's a DIY situation, now you're weighing more variables. How much does it smell? How much smoke was there? How much did it cost? Could you use an ozone treatment? It gets a little bit more nuanced. And you want air purifiers running, air scrubbers if you have them from a restoration company. But insurance companies get really cheap on this stuff. So they typically are going to only give the contractors the allowance of using a scrubber for 4 or 5 days. So even if they do their scrubbing phase, I'd still put Jaspers or another good HEPA in the home throughout the whole process. And remember, Your whole city is contaminated. Homes were burnt, they're lost. So anytime there's wind blowing and ash kicking up and soil in the water, like your city is contaminated. So you desperately need air filtration for the next several months. And if you live in a city with pollution and wildfire smoke, this is a non-negotiable. You got to clean your air. Contents and belonging. So I've literally cleaned clothing many times because insurance is like, try again, and not been able to get the odor out. This is a time when the smell test is great. If you're going out of town, it's a good opportunity to bring your contents out of the house. Because if you're smelling a dirty shirt in a dirty house, you won't smell it. But if you're gonna go like an hour away, bring a chair, bring some shirts, bring a sweater, bring your pillow, and take it to a clean environment. Let your nose kind of get a day or so to breathe some fresh air, and then smell your stuff. And that's the only way to truly know if it smells or not. Furniture, same deal. Hard surfaces can be cleaned, porous surfaces cannot. Something to look for. So, especially if you're fighting with insurance companies about what should be approved and what should not be, you sometimes, like IKEA, for example, it's sealed on the top, but it's MDF on the bottom. Same with doors. They might be sealed on the front, but the top of the door could be MDF. MDF is exposed like microfibers from the wood. So if there's anything, any material on that surface that is porous, that is unsealed, could be the bottom of your coffee table, the bottom of the couch, could be cork on the back of this thing. Nope, this one's not, but hopefully you get the point of what I'm saying. If any part of it, if I put a water droplet on this table, let's just do it. We're gonna see the water is beading. It's sitting on top of the table. If I pour water on my shirt, let's wipe it. You can't see it, it's not beading, it's absorbed in the shirt. So, granite countertop, sealed. That wood there, porous. So if the water can't bead on top of it, it's not sealed and it is porous. Books, paper books. When there's fire and smoke damage in libraries, all the books are typically gone. So another thing to balance, if it's an insurance claim, I'm arguing for retail value of every book I've ever had. Even electronics. Electronics, if you have an insurance claim, you can guarantee that the smoke has gotten into your computers, into your TVs, and it will corrode over time. It might not break on day one, but after a year or so, your electronics are going to start to fail. So if it's DIY, no coverage, probably overkill to throw out your MacBook. If it's an insurance claim, I'm pushing to get all of that stuff replaced. Books, same kind of thing. How much damage, but the paper, the books absorb a lot of smoke and other particulate. Swimming pools. You're going to want to get your pool drained and all your pool equipment inspected. All that ash, all that soot, all that debris, the water is very contaminated. So you're going to want to if you have a swimming pool, you live in a wildfire zone, you want to get your pool drained, cleaned, refilled, and all your pool equipment inspected, because you might find your motors, your pumps, your heaters are damaged. So if you have an insurance claim, these are all the kinds of things you want to be thinking about that should be replaced. Last but not least is personal protection while cleaning. N95 masks are typically not sufficient. You want a P100 respirator. Technically, you're supposed to be clean shaven, but I'd rather see a P100 and a little bit of a beard than an N95. But you want a P100. You're going to want to use gloves to protect your skin from residue. Take breaks. I'll make a smoke cleaning checklist for here. Also, when you're cleaning rooms, seal them off. So just put a piece of plastic. You can get like poly from Home Depot or whatever. Even a plastic bag, do the best you can, use tape, but close off the return vent and the other vent, and maybe put one along the bottom of the door, just so the room that you're cleaning is now an isolated room. If you can wash your drapes, great. If you can't, they're gonna have to go. We talked about kids' toys. I'm throwing out all my kids' toys. Once again, if there's an insurance claim, insurance companies hate liability. If it involves a baby, also, if you're pregnant, if you're immunocompromised, tell the restoration contractor. Be like, look, I'm pregnant. Are you willing to take on the liability of my child and when they're born? I don't think so. If you're pregnant, use it. If you have asthma, use it. If you have a disease, cancer, use it. If you have babies, if you have kids, if you have any underlying health conditions where your standard of care is higher, use it. And if you're DIY, you might want to take that more seriously as well. But yeah, I'm throwing out baby stuff. I'm throwing out pacifiers, dishes, like dishware. We can replace. We can wash dishes. We can wash cutlery. That stuff's fine. But hey, if you have a porous cutting board, you can't. Hopefully, you're starting to see the theme here. Okay, I'll give you guys a checklist. Hopefully that helps. This is the Smoke Detox Masterclass. Remember, honestly, air is the big one. I would overinvest in air filtration for the restoration part of the process. It's much, your health is too important, and everything here is all about having cleaner surfaces and cleaner stuff so you're not breathing it in. The air filtration is like a cheap insurance policy on not getting everything done perfectly. And in terms of deep cleaning, one more thing I didn't touch on. This is the big deep clean. You're pulling your dresser away. You're pulling your beds off the wall. You are pulling all the cutlery and the kitchen stuff out of the kitchen. You know, read how to do a deep clean. I'll give you guys a list. You're pulling up the rug. You're shaking it out outside. Like, you're going room by room by room. Often it's like a 4 or 5 person job for a few days, but what is your health worth? A lot more than a few days. All right, this concludes our section on smoke detox and restoration. So a lot of this was at someone who's doing it on their own and making good judgment calls. But, you know, if you do have a restoration claim, I'm going for everything. I'm disposing it. I'm documenting it. I'm pushing for all that stuff. See you in the next video.